Thank you for tuning in. We're continuing to look at these nuggets of truth in Second Corinthians, chapter number 10, verse number 3. He says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and even lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete." It's maybe hard to imagine that someone that we look so up to in the Christian world as the Apostle Paul would be under attack, but he was under constant attack by the Judaizers, by the religious, by other Christians who, wanted to usurp or became jealous. And I think that is one of the hardest things in our journey, especially as a pastor, when I think about it, is that, people who really don't understand what you do and go through, they feel so free to criticize you or how you teach or how you present or what you say or how you said it. And it's easy to get sidetracked. But here Paul's saying, now listen, yeah, we come under attack and people make accusations. But remember, even though we walk in a physical body, we don't war like the world wars. We don't attack or counterattack the way human nature might think. In the world, if someone says something mean to you, what do? You say something mean back. They slap you, you slap them. Uh, it's a world of retribution. But Paul looks deeper, and he sees that we, as a spiritual people who have a soul and live in a body, don't resort to the lowest domain, but to the highest. And we recognize that behind even these seemingly physical attacks, there's a spiritual dimension. And so we have a spiritual warfare. And we're not left weaponless. We're not left defenseless. He says here, we're not waging according to the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. So I want to encourage you as you go through life in this fallen world to remember that there's a spiritual dimension to what's happening. And don't rely on your physical or mental, but call upon the divine power of his indwelling presence. If you're in Christ by grace through faith, you have his divine power in you to do what? To destroy the strongholds of the enemy. When the enemy comes against us, whether it's through depressive thoughts, whether it's through insults and attacks by others, we call to remembrance. We rebuke the enemy. We tell him he has no place in our lives. When we're facing temptations, we say, I am his. I'm secured. I have all the power of Christ, the very resurrection power of God living in me, and I am secure. You have no place here. When temptation seems strong and we feel weak, we say, my weakness may be real, but his strength can overcome. The drug addict, the alcoholic, whatever, can say, I can overcome this stronghold. I can break this stronghold down because I have Christ in me. When the arguments come, we don't just get in combative arguments. We destroy arguments and even lofty opinions raised against the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive to obey Christ. Sometimes people will throw thoughts and ideas and things at us. Sometimes they come into our minds. But he says, don't just let every thought hang around in your head. You know, I heard an expression, I don't remember where, but someone says, you know, I'm living rent-free in their head. I'm like, that's cruel. Don't let anyone live rent-free in your head. Don't let any thought just come and dwell around in your mind and dwell on it. Take every thought into captivity. What does that mean? Take that thought and say, how does this thought conform to the truth? How does this thought conform to what Christ says about me? And make those thoughts obey Christ. He said he's ready to punish every disobedience. Paul was willing to confront all those who were in rebellion or defying the gospel. But we need to confront even our own disobedience, our own rebellion, the thoughts that we allow to permeate our thinking that are not true, and say no, because we are called to a life of obedience. And our mission is to see that obedience complete. It's not an obedience of oppression. It's an obedience of surrender to his indwelling presence. A heart that says, I'm here and ready to please you in all things, because I know he has all things good for me. This is the beautiful invitation of being a disciple. There is an enemy out there. Sometimes they seem physical, but he says, look beyond and deal with all things from the spiritual dimension. Bring down those strongholds. Break down the weapons of the enemy with the divine power of God, which is in you. Have a great day. Love ya.